Hi, today we're going to talk about the Federal Trade Commission. The Federal Trade Commission has become the data security policeman for the United States. This is because the United States government has not developed data security standards for most industries. The feds have put together data security laws for health records and for financial information. But Congress has been very slow to put together standards that would apply over all industries and businesses. So the Federal Trade Commission stepped in to fill the void. The Federal Trade Commission has aggressively brought enforcement actions against companies that have failed to reasonably protect the data of their customers. The Federal Trade Commission took an act that was passed over a century ago, in 1914, and decided to apply it to cybersecurity issues. The Federal Trade Commission justifies its enforcement actions under Section 5 of the Federal Trade Commission Act. The Federal Trade Commission considers unreasonable data security breaches to be unfair trade practices. That makes sense to me. Section 5 of the Federal Trade Act addresses illegal, unfair, or deceptive acts or practices in or affecting commerce. The Federal Trade Commission has been so effective in its enforcement actions that most companies buckle and agree to consent decrees rather than litigation. The Federal Trade Commission uses a three-part test, known as the cigarette rule, which it initially used when considering how to regulate unfair and deceptive advertising and labeling of cigarettes in 1964. Over time, the Federal Trade Commission has refined the rule. A claim for unfairness must satisfy the following elements. The injury must be substantial. The injury must not be outweighed by any offsetting consumer or competitive benefits. The injury must be one which consumers could not reasonably have avoided. Substantial injury. Caused or is likely to cause a substantial injury to customers. The harm should be some form of monetary harm. Identity theft is a qualifying harm. Benefits. Do the benefits to the customers outweigh the injury? If the company can demonstrate that the costs of limiting the harm would have financially penalized the customers more than the harm the customers suffered because of the data breach, then the company would probably not be penalized. Avoiding injury. Could the customer, with reasonable care, have avoided the injury? The company's practice will be considered unfair if the customer was unable to reasonably avoid the harm. For example, could the customer have accepted an update from the business that would have prevented the harm? If the customer had accepted the update, the customer could have avoided the harm. In the next two videos, we will continue to address the Federal Trade Commission and cybersecurity issues. Well, I hope this helps. Have a good day.